He is covered with tattoos, his arms, his legs, even his fingers. But should anyone judge Tariq Malouf because of what he chooses to put on his body? Take a closer look.
You'll see I have my kids' names on my arms.
His two oldest children on his arms, then Bible verses. A way for this divorced Montgomery County father to say thank you for his children.
I walk with what I feel are the verses that represent my life and what I want in prayer to say every day to my kids.
And it's Tariq's fight to protect his boys that has given rise to a bitter legal fight for justice in Conroe. And once again, the Beaumont Court of Appeals is being asked to look at the conduct of a Montgomery County judge. This time it's Judge Suzanne Stovall, first elected 34 years ago. She retired 10 years ago, but now she's an unelected visiting judge, and she ignored our request to talk about the case.
It concerns me to wonder how many people she has messed with, how many kids' lives she's ruined, or families she's turned upside down. There needs to be accountability.
Tariq had been married to Marissa Malouf, a special ed teacher in Conroe ISD. After they split, she got a new fiancé. This guy, Tim Bruxford. Here's his mugshot. And that's why things got so ugly. In counseling, the kids had alleged Bruxford was walking around naked, removing his genitals from his pants, even forcing the kids to play a game called Bangkok, where he could strike the kids' private parts.
But we're talking about striking my sons in their genitals to the point where they were knocked to the ground.
Malouf did what any father would. He went to court to get primary custody. Up until now, the divorced couple had shared the kids 50-50. Judge Jennifer Robin issued a temporary injunction, getting Bruxford away from the kids. The Montgomery County DA got a restraining order. But when it came time for trial, it was Judge Stovall on the bench. And the very first day of the case may come back to haunt the judge. From the bench, the judge first asked if Tariq wanted gloves to cover his hands and then said he needed some. But why? Because his hands are tattooed with crosses?
Boy, I tell you, when you judge by the cover, I've lost. And that's what happened.
Marissa had hired Steve Jackson. He had helped one Montgomery County judge before in a paternity scandal, well known around the courthouse. Look, Conroe's a small town. I get it. But imagine Tariq watching something that victims of family injustice scream about all the time. These sort of relationships that exist in the courtroom. Jackson mentions he was taking Botox treatments for his voice during a previous trial, giving him a, quote, new sexy, sultry voice. Judge Stovall then remembers she had a hot flash 25 years ago while on the bench that worried Mr. Jackson a lot. Jackson then reminded the judge she was one of the first to hold his newborn son, quoting, "We all go way back here." Except for Tariq Malouf. Imagine how he felt sitting there watching this trip down a hot flash memory lane.
She, from day one, you could tell there was something, whether it was against me or just a super tight bond with the other side.
Judge Stovall was ready to end the case after just 2 expert witnesses were called. Tariq didn't even get a chance to call the guy who may have threatened his kids in the first place.
I couldn't understand it.
You hadn't testified?
No.
Your wife hadn't testified?
No. He hadn't testified. Doctors hadn't testified. The school people hadn't testified. I mean, family hadn't testified. And the boys who are old enough to speak, because I think Texas is 12 years old, they had requested also. They hadn't spoken.
Tariq's ex-wife had escaped the witness stand too. At first, Marissa had denied ever seeing her kids abused, but in her deposition, the answer was quite different.
You're telling me that what you saw were 10 instances of Bangkok and 2 instances of mangina.
Right.
I think you'd be uttering those words, Mr. Coral.
Glad they had a good laugh, but the deposition, it was not even entered into evidence. Dr. Kid Harrison had testified. He was appointed the custody evaluator in the case, and he says he found evidence of abuse, but not in Marissa's home. No evidence she even knew about it. And that's why this email bothers Tarek so much. In it, Harrison admits, quote, "I did not have the deposition of Marissa during the evaluation, nor was it furnished to me prior to the time of trial." Harrison's been at the center of high-profile custody cases for decades around here. And in 1994, Harrison sued HBO for libel after a documentary on Harris County family courts accused him of failing to review the evidence of sexual abuse in a divorce and custody case. The documentary is not on the HBO website. But in a transcript, we found famous director Lee Grant sounding the alarm about the Harris County family courts. Quoting, "Here in Southeast Texas, we found a family court system filled with cases so medieval in their punishment, so irrational in their decisions." That sounds exactly like what we've been finding in family courts in 2020, nearly 30 years later.
And the judge is ready to rule. And she keeps asking me if I understand. And I'm trying to explain to her, I have no clue what has happened here.
The court transcript shows how tense it got when the judge was ready to end the case. Without a chance to call a single witness, Tarek repeatedly refused to agree to end the case. And what happened next should haunt Judge Stovall. It could be the reason the Beaumont Court of Appeals demands a do-over.
She says to the bailiff, "Let me have your gun. Tracy, give me your gun." Tracy's the bailiff's name.
Really? Here's the transcript. A sitting judge in a family case threatening a party in her court to either accept her ruling or what? Maybe she thought it was funny, but when you're fighting for your kids, I don't think so.
Do I think she's going to grab this gun and shoot me? No. Do I think that that's symbolic of saying, this trial is dead to you? You're finished with this. Push me some more and see what happens. Yes.
You would think Tarek's lawyer who was there would still be up in arms over Judge Stovall's gun threat. After all, on his website, lawyer Dwayne Corley talks about his legacy of justice. The court fight ended in October of 2018, but when we called Corley, he didn't even remember Tarek had been his client.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean you know what I'm talking about? Were you his lawyer?
What?
And when we reminded Corley, well, the rest of the chat didn't go so well.
You're wasting my time. I'm sorry. Thank you.
We didn't get to ask why Mr. Corley didn't argue with Judge Stovall after her tattoo comments. Remember? Could we get Mr. Maloof a pair of gloves? He needs some gloves. Instead, the legacy of justice in Montgomery County got kind of weird too about his taste in women and porn. Really, quoting, "When I'm looking at pornography," he told the judge, "and all these beautiful girls have tattoos all over them, and I don't like it." That's how lawyers and judges talk in the midst of a bitter custody fight. When you drive north from Houston, you'll see this billboard in the trees. Fight for dads. It's Tarek's mission now. Before he went to court, he could see his kids whenever he wanted. After court, he couldn't. And now he's only allowed to go to their school twice a month. He has to give his wife 24-hour notice.
So if they're sick, I cannot go to help them. I cannot go to pick them up. I have no rights to do any of that.
Tarek claims he was offered a deal in front of the judge to make all that go away. But he had to pay more child support. Money for time.
So yeah, it's money. This is all money, nothing more.
Tarek's new lawyers hope the appeals court in Beaumont will act again to stop injustice in Conroe.
And I remember Kid Harrison sitting in front of me laughing. And I said, well, we were in this meeting. He goes, "Welcome to the $1 Million Club." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "It's going to cost you $1 million to see your kids."
Think back to what another victim in that Lee Grant documentary said nearly 30 years ago. The family court system is the last bastion of the good old boy system. The family courts operate on who do you know? So it's an attitude of conscious but deliberate indifference about the best interest of that child. They don't want to know it, or they simply don't care.
My business is gone. My child support I borrow every month now to pay. I've been told it costs me everything. So, but that's what you do, right? What's the point of having anything if you don't have your family? So take it all. Just give me some time with my kids.
Torek sees the pain in the 14-year-old boy who authored this poem, his own son. Things will be okay. I promise. My dad said that to me. Court, I hope to never see you again.